On April 2nd, the citizens of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, will have a chance to vote on our next new mayor. The two candidates who advanced in the primary are Mrs. Ann Murguia and Mr. Mark Holland. Please join us as we talk with each candidate and quite possibly and ultimately the next new mayor of the Unified Government, Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you, Mr. Holland, for being with us today. We really appreciate you coming on campus and doing this interview with us. You've been a successful commissioner. What made you decide to run for the mayor of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas?
Well, probably for the same reasons I ran for commission originally. I'm fourth generation Wyandotte County and a third generation pastor in the community and love raising my kids here. And so when I was as a pastor looking around the community for ways to be involved and for ways to make a difference in the community, I ran for commission and had a really good experience on my 6 years on the commission. So as the Mayor Joe Reardon stepped down and we clearly needed strong leadership moving forward in our community, a number of people approached me and talked to me about that. And so I felt like it was a good match for the place I am in my life and with the church and family, that it was going to be a good opportunity.
And you're a pastor at which church that is?
I'm a pastor at Trinity Community Church, a United Methodist congregation, just down the street at 51st and Parallel.
Okay. And you've been a pastor there for?
I've been there for 14 years.
Wow, okay.
My great-grandfather pastored in Kansas City, Kansas in the 30s, and my dad pastors in the 60s and 70s. So our family's been around a long time.
Been around, wow, okay. What do you see as the greatest attributes here in our community?
Well, without question, the greatest attributes in Kansas City, Kansas are the people. We have a wonderful diversity of people in Kansas City, Kansas, and you don't see that eclectic a mix anywhere else really in the region. And so I'm so proud of my hometown in terms of the strengths of the different cultures, the different viewpoints. And as you go across the county, and I've been an at-large commissioner for 6 years, so I've had the privilege of serving the whole county. And so as I've gone across from Piper out to the northeast to Rosedale, across to Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, you just have such a diversity of people in our community with so many different interests. And you have very urban areas, you have very rural areas. It's just an amazing place to be, and I think that strength is by far the greatest part of what it is.
Right, and of course you pastor, and so you see a lot of that diversity in your church.
Absolutely,
as well.
No, absolutely.
Right. Explain to our viewers the accomplishments that you've made as commissioner here in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Well, and the biggest thing about being a commissioner and being a mayor is you really can't do anything on your own. Everything is a part of a team. You have a team not only from the elected officials, but you have a wonderful staff. We have the best employees in the world. And that team coming together to make initiatives, set priorities, and make initiatives. So the greatest accomplishment probably has been to be a strong part of a team. And as I look at the development out west, everyone talks about how great and exciting that is. But we've also had great success taking that success and planting it in other parts of our community.
Okay.
You know, we've opened 4 new urban grocery stores in the last 6 years. The first 4 grocery stores in 30 years in our community. That's a huge success because it symbolizes and represents the rebuilding of the neighborhood infrastructure in our community, which we need to do in so many areas.
Okay, thank you. Both you and Ann Murguia are currently commissioners here, and you have at least 2 years or more to serve as commissioners. However, one of you will become mayor of the Unified Government, and the other remaining as commissioner. If that is you becoming mayor, how would your relationship become? Or how would it?
Well, I think the key it's still a team, and you still everybody works together up there. And so regardless of the roles, you know, the mayor has a different role, the at-large commissioners have a different role, each commissioner has a role in terms of their district. And I think it's just a matter of coming back together and getting together with we did a series of retreats with the current mayor. Joe Reardon did a great job with some retreats and priority setting. I think you just restart that process and you come back and you go back into retreat with the whole group and you begin setting those priorities again as a team. And I think it'll work together fine.
Okay. Now with the retreats and coming together with the mayor, I'm sure that those were pretty productive.
Well, they were really productive because, you know, one of the challenges we've come through a very difficult economic time, the worst recession in 100 years in this country. And it's impacted the whole world, really, and it's impacted our country and certainly our city. And so to take the time to really set our priorities through this recession time, I think has been good coming out of the recession, because we have laid a lot of the groundwork and really talked together as an elected body to say, where do we want to move our community? What are the specific areas we need to be focused on? And how can we align our budgeting and our resources, our people resources, with those priorities? Okay. So it's been a really positive process.
Can you tell us some of those priorities?
Absolutely. So we have, it's a long list.
Okay. Yeah.
One of them, of course, is housing. Housing is a big need, and the housing issues vary across the community. Out west, it's mostly new housing, wanting to build new housing, build out subdivisions. Some of those subdivisions stalled during the recession, and so they're only partially built out. So one of the priorities we have is to get those subdivisions restarted and completed. In the urban areas, there's a lot of need for reconstruction. We have a lot of vacant lots, too many vacant lots, and we also need a lot of rehabilitation. There's homes that are older housing stock, but are still quality homes, and if we can partner with other organizations or individuals to make sure that that housing stock is cared for, so that we can continue to raise the values across the community. So housing's one of the big issues.
Okay.
Transportation's one of the issues.
Let's go back to transportation.
Yes.
Now the bus system is now going out to the Legends, and
Yes.
it's coming all the way back north,
Yeah.
on the north end, right?
Yes.
How far is it stretching into Edwardsville or Bonner Springs? Is it going out in those areas?
You know, our bus service is not what it needs to be
Okay.
in Kansas City, Kansas. And really, in a sprawling metropolitan area like Kansas City Metro, this city was built for cars.
Right.
Right or wrong, it wasn't my idea. But we have I think we have the most highway miles per citizen in the whole country in the metro area of Kansas City. So we didn't build compact cities that are more usable for public transportation. And that gives us challenges. And so we don't have the service to all the areas of our community. Bonner Springs and Edwardsville don't have the level of service they need. But also we have an area in the urban area of people that don't have cars and need transportation, and we don't even have complete service there. So the service going out to the Legends is great for our citizens to get people access to jobs, and also to really open up from an ecological perspective. It's much better to use public transportation than all the cars that we have. But we don't have the system in place yet. But the State Avenue corridor is big. We're building a new transit center at Minnesota and 7th, and a new transit center at Indian Springs. And those are going to be significant hubs for our bus transit, and hopefully to expand our services.
Okay, well good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
One more priority and then we're going to go to break. But
Okay, the other another priority is economic development.
Okay.
Everyone talks about job growth and making sure that we're continuing the build out of jobs. We've been able to add more than 6,000 new jobs in Wyandotte County in the last 6 years between General Motors, the KU Cancer Center, Sara Lee Meat Processing Plant, the casino, and the Cerner. Those amazing jobs, and the economic development to continue that aggressive initiative that we've had to make sure we're bringing new jobs here and bringing them to all parts of our community. We've had, obviously, everyone sees the out west, but KU Med is in Rosedale. We have development of Fairfax that needs to continue in the Northeast. But we need to continue to bring jobs to our citizens, so that's a big priority that we have.
okay,
as well.
I was going to ask you about that. How many of those jobs are guaranteed to Wyandotte County? And
that's the big
Kansas,
issue, and in fact,
right.
one of my principal pieces on my campaign is to connect our citizens to these world-class jobs.
Okay.
You know, General Motors is a huge asset in our community, and about 17% of the workers actually live in Wyandotte County. Well, I'd like to see a much higher percentage
Right.
of those workers here. The Cerner just hired their first 1,200 employees. The newspaper reported that only 100 of those employees were over the age of 25. And those salaries are averaging $55,000 a year. And we want to make sure our citizens are working. Now, Cerner has a great partnership with our school district and with our community college to make sure that our residents, our students are on track for those jobs and are prepared for those. I want to see similar mentoring programs through KU Med. I don't want KU just to look at our community for staffing needs, though I want them to do that. I want them to look at our community for the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare professionals and the administrators. For the high-paying salaries that KU offers, I want to make sure our residents have the mentoring and the training in order to get those jobs.
Wonderful. That sounds like a good plan. Good
It's
plan.
it's going to take a partnership.
I know. We're going to take a break,
Okay.
and we're going to come back. We'll be right back with mayoral candidate Mark Holland in just a moment. Hi, Hi, and welcome back to Conversations. We're here with mayoral candidate Mark Holland, and we're going to start up with another question here.
Sure.
And the question would be, how do you think the community views your voice?
Well, I think one of the reasons I was elected originally was to have a voice of clarity, a voice of compassion for the community. A lot of the challenges that we have are because a lot of our citizens are struggling. They're struggling economically, they're struggling socially, and I think to be able to have a voice of compassion to approach the issues of how we address our issues together, I think that compassionate voice is very important. I think we also need a clarity of vision and direction, and I think I offer a clear voice of casting a big picture vision, which is why I think, again, the at-large position was important to me. To not just be focused on one area, but really to focus across the community and look at the big picture. And I think the ability to cast that big picture vision is a part of the voice that I bring to the commission, but I'd also be able to bring to the mayor's office.
So we see compassion in you. Lots
Absolutely.
of compassion. That's wonderful. What plans do you have, if you have anything right now, and I'm sure you do, to make living here in our community more affordable to our citizens?
Well, that's a great question because, as I just mentioned, a lot of our residents are struggling. And I think the best way to do that is to continue with the job development and the economic development and connecting our citizens with jobs. Jobs is a high priority. Our unemployment rate in Wyandotte County is too high, and we need to make sure that we have the opportunities for our citizens. A lot of that starts with education, but one of the components too that I want to focus on is making sure that we connect our citizens to the internet. You know, we have this great Google Fiber project coming in that offers really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our community. And through the internet, as you well know, I mean, you can't even apply for a job anymore.
You can't.
If it's not online.
Right, exactly.
The community college here offers a lot of online classes. You don't have access to those if you don't have internet. And even healthcare is moving more internet-based, where you can get information. You can even meet with your doctor face-to-face on the computer. So there's a lot of opportunity, and the digital divide in our community is too wide. And there's a correlation between the digital divide and socioeconomic. And if we can close that digital divide, I think we open up a world of opportunity for our citizens that helps to make it more possible for them to pay for the things they need, to have access to the resources they need, to make sure that we're growing our community from the bottom up, you know, to make sure everybody has that opportunity. I think the internet, it's almost cliched now to say, but the internet really offers a world of possibilities.
It really does, and it's harder to get the older, more mature individuals on a computer.
It's true.
And getting them to kind of used to this new technology that we're in, because, you know, I work in human resources.
That's right.
So when they hear we don't have paper applications, they're like, what?
No,
yeah, everything is online.
That's
so,
right.
yeah, getting
well,
everybody.
Even the hiring I've done recently, if folks can't send it electronically, they're not going to be able to work in the office.
Right.
Because everything we do in the office is electronic.
Right.
And so we need that skill set to start. And the community college is one of our great partners for that, and for the training. With the workforce development that the city does is in partnership with the community college and the school districts. It takes that kind of team and collaborative effort to make sure that all of our citizens have access to these things.
It does. Thank you. What new policies would you adopt if you were to become mayor?
Well, that's a great question. The new policies really need to center on how we are more aggressive in getting jobs and our citizens connected to the jobs. That workforce development has to be a major priority, and it has to be up at a policy level. Healthy living is another key piece. We were ranked 105th out of 105 counties by the Kansas Health Institute for healthy living. And I've been on the mayor's task force. I currently chair the healthy infrastructure piece. There are policy things that we can do to help with healthy living, which includes the policies around grocery stores to make sure people have access to healthy foods. Policies around complete streets to make sure there are sidewalks and trails for people to get out and be active. It's difficult to ask people to go exercise if they have to walk down the middle of the street to do it. And so the infrastructure that we provide in our community to make sure we have the community centers with the access to fitness that people need. So there's a lot of opportunities from a policy level that we can make available to our community to have healthier living for everyone.
Now we have a YMCA here.
Yes.
And now correct me if I'm wrong, but is that one on the list to be closed?
Yes, we actually have 3 YMCAs in Wyandotte
Three,
County.
okay.
We have the one in Bonner Springs that's
Okay.
in partnership with their school district. We have the one at the Providence Y that's out on Parallel. And then we also have the 8th Street Y in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. And unfortunately, I just heard, like everyone did, that the downtown Kansas City YMCA is being closed.
Okay.
We have been working with the YMCA to see if we could build a new Y downtown, full service Y, because I know that one has had to close its pool a number of years ago, and the building is challenged. It's been there over 100 years. I was very disappointed that it's closing,
Right.
but my commitment to having a downtown Y or having a downtown recreation center for our kids, for our seniors, and for the business people who work down there,
Right.
that's a big constituency of the Y. My commitment remains to make sure we have a downtown Y. I'm disappointed that this one's closing before we could get a new one built.
Okay. All right. How do you feel about transitional government?
Well, immediately after taking office, we go into our budget session.
Correct.
Okay, so the new mayor and new commissioners will be sworn in at the end of April, and then the first week in May we have our first public budget hearing. And May, June, and July is our intensive budget sessions, and we vote on it at the end of July. So we don't have any time to waste or any time to lose. We need to jump right in. Fortunately, we have a roadmap that the last mayor and last commission has put together, so we're not starting from zero.
Okay.
But we need to get back in the room. We need to review with the new commissioners. There will be at least 2 new commissioners who are coming on this commission. And so we need to get back on the ground with where we are and start to move to where we want to go. But I think the roadmap we have will carry us through this budget session.
Okay.
And then we'll continue those retreats and continue that intensive dialogue with the elected body and in conversation with the whole community. I mean, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. All of our policy pieces have been in communication with the whole community. And I think the transitional portion is bringing the new commissioners on board, the new mayor on board, putting together the plan for this budget session, and then really continuing to talk about what are our priorities and how do we implement those at a policy level.
How, you mentioned retreats earlier, would that play a role in the transitions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we'd want a transitional team.
Right.
The new mayor is going to want a transitional team. It's going to be people represented from all over the community, all kinds of different interests, residents, neighborhood groups, business interests, to really talk about moving the city forward, because that's what this is all about. It's not about either of the candidates that are in this race. It's about our community.
Right.
And making sure that there's a good representation from people across the community who are helping with that transition time to make sure that we start off quickly. I don't want to spend the first 2 years of trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
I want to make sure that we're moving forward right now, because we've had such great progress for the last 16 years since unification. We really need to take this to the next level right away.
Right. And you will be working, or one of you will be working closely with Mayor Reardon.
Well, absolutely.
With this transition.
Yeah, I think with the transition time, and the turnover in the elected body doesn't mirror the turnover in the administration. I mean, we have a wonderful staff at the city. The staff will still be there. They're used to these transitions. They've done it a number of times.
Right.
And so I think we already have the personnel in place to continue to move the city forward. We're going to have some transition of elected officials, and we just need to keep going.
Keep going. Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right.
Okay, and we'll be right back with Mark Holland. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to Conversations. We are here with Mark Holland, mayoral candidate for the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Earlier, we talked about infrastructure.
Yes.
And I'd like to go back and talk about how the internet plays in with the infrastructure.
Well, that's really a great question, because when we think about infrastructure, we think about the traditional curbs and sidewalks. You think about sewers, electricity, other utilities.
Okay.
And the internet used to be viewed, I think, as a luxury, but it's not a luxury anymore. It's definitely a part of a utility that a family has to have so that you have access to the whole world. It's very easy with the digital divide in our community for people to be isolated, and the internet opens up the world of opportunities. And I think to have that, to think about the internet in the context of infrastructure rather than as a luxury, I think is transformative in the way that we push to make sure that every citizen has it.
Okay, great. Let's talk about budgets.
Budgets, yes.
Your experience in dealing with budgets, and what do you foresee with the coming up after the election, of course,
Right.
In May and June and July, how those budgets will appear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, the budget, the first time you see as a new commissioner the 3-inch binder with
Wow.
250 pages of budget, which represents about $1 million a page, because our budget is between $250 and $280 million. And so the first time you see it, it's a bit overwhelming, and it takes some time to digest it. It took about a year to feel like that I had a good grasp on it. And now going into the budget sessions, I have a lot of confidence in terms of how it needs to be structured, the revenue streams, the expenditures. There's so many layers to it in municipal government. It's important to get our heads around it and work together on it.
Okay.
I'm also the chair of the Economic Development Standing Committee and the Finance Standing Committee. So we deal with budget things throughout the year. And our standing committee also oversees the annual audit. And we have received awards actually for the transparency of our audits the last 2 years in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm very proud of that. But the budgeting process, it's like our homes. We have this much revenue, this much expense, and then this much of stuff we want to do.
Right.
Right? And so the challenge and the reason for setting priorities is to make sure, number one, we're doing the things we have to do as efficiently as possible. So we're continually reviewing every department, continually looking at how we're doing things and making sure we're doing them at a world-class standard and within our means. The other piece is we also have to look at the things we want to do in the new initiatives. We simply can't do everything we want to do. It's true for everybody. So what we have to do is set very clear priorities and make sure we're doing the things that are going to grow the city. So when we're spending money at the city, we're not just spending it, but we're in fact investing it. So we're investing money in programs that are actually going to multiply the reality, or multiply our revenue streams. Every time we invest in an economic development project, we ought to make sure we have a return that's 10 times what we invested in it. Yeah, you take General Motors, for instance. General Motors, there was a lot of criticism when Jack Reardon oversaw a city council that gave them 100% tax abatement for 20 years. Mm-hmm. People thought they'd given away the farm. General Motors now is the largest taxpayer in Kansas City, Kansas. General Motors has just invested almost $2 billion in the last decade in that plant alone. That plant is one of the most thriving economic engines in our community. And it started with a vision earlier to not just spend money on a company, but to invest with a company for the long-term benefit of our community. And that's the kind of model that we want to make sure we use.
Okay.
Though I will say, I do need to say,
Okay.
I do not support giving 100% tax abatements.
Okay.
It was a risk that they took a long time ago in a very different time.
Okay.
I think we're in a different place now
Okay.
than that.
All right. Let's go back to the transitional, the transparency
Yes.
in the audit reports that you guys receive. Tell us what that means, the transparency of it.
Well, the transparency is critical. I mean, it's very important that, and there are a couple of transparency standards. One, we need to make sure that there's transparency with the elected body. The staff does a very good job educating the elected body about the way money is being spent and how it's handled. All that needs to be on the table for the elected body to see. There's also professional accounting standards. It is not just that we manage the bottom line, but we have professional accountants who are looking at the books and are auditing them based on their standards to say, yes, the unified government is keeping up with the standard accounting practices, that yes, they are following all of the state statutes and how they report it, that all of the federal grants that we receive, all the state grants we received are being handled in the proper manner. All of these are very important because that audit is foundational to our credit rating. And you see on TV all the time, get your free credit rating, right? Well, the credit rating at the city is critically important because it allows you to borrow money at a certain rate. If our credit rating goes down because our reserves are down or because our books aren't in order, the cost of borrowing money goes up. And it's a tremendous cost to the citizens. So this transparency on one hand is an integrity issue, but it's also a financial issue because if you don't have that level of transparency, you're not going to have banks or bondholders issuing interest rates that are favorable to you. Okay. So it's something that's behind the scenes in government that most folks don't pay a lot of attention to, but it's something that the elected body has to be keenly tuned into to make sure we're being good stewards of the resources we have in the community.
Can you tell us where our credit rating stands?
Our credit rating stands at AA right now, which is very high.
That's good.
We were able to move through the recession without losing it. During the recession, we spent down a lot of our reserves, And our credit agencies said that's a red flag, and so we needed to make sure we were building our reserves back up. We're continuing to build those back up, and that's going to be a big conversation in our budget today as we move into the next budget session, because we have to make sure we're building that credit rating, because when we build a new street, we have to issue bonds. And if the interest rate is 2% higher because our credit rating's low, it costs the citizens a lot more, and we can do less infrastructure improvements. So protecting that credit rating is very important.
Well, thank you for explaining that. And this goes into that. What do you propose to do with the expected windfall from the STAR bonds that were issued back when they were developing the legends that
Absolutely.
are now expected to generate millions and millions of dollars in the next few years?
Well, when the Legends was built, there was a new program by the state called sales tax revenue bonds, which are called STAR bonds.
Okay.
Those sales tax revenue bonds take the sales tax that come out of a project to pay back the cost of developing the project. It had never been done in Kansas, and we were the first ones to try it. The bonds were originally scheduled to pay off in 2021. The Legends has been so successful, generating over $650 million a year in annual sales, that it was paying them down more quickly than we thought, and in fact, they were due to be paid off next year. Okay. We had an opportunity with Cerner and with the new Sporting Kansas City soccer stadium to invest STAR bonds again, and that delayed the payment, or the return on the payment, until 2017. So we have 4 more years before those pay off. And as those pay off, the new revenue to the city is anticipated to be between $12 and $15 million in new revenue.
Is that per year?
Per year.
Wow.
So that's a significant stake. The biggest challenge to that revenue, of course, is the cuts that are being made at the state level. The state cuts are affecting our school districts, our community college, they're affecting our unified government as well. So protecting our revenue streams from the state is critically important to make sure we see that windfall in 4 years. But the next mayor is going to be able to set out the plan for how we budget and prepare with the priorities, so when that money becomes available, that we don't just spend it, and I can assure you the line to spend it has formed already outside of City Hall. But we need to make sure we're investing it. And I believe one of the best investments for that money is to take a significant chunk of that and invest it in reduction of property taxes for our residents and for our businesses. We know that our property tax rate is the highest in the region, and it's too high. And we know that that's a high priority for our residents. We need to take this opportunity to bring that property tax down.
Now that would make it great choice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, very last question, and I'm going to ask you if you would like to address the constituents out there, our viewers, and let them know about you and tell them why you want to be mayor.
Well, I just reiterate that this is my hometown. You know, born at Bethany Hospital, baptized here in the community, mostly raised in this community. My dad's a pastor, and we've moved around, coming back to my hometown to raise my own family. I'm very committed to Kansas City, Kansas, very committed to Wyandotte County. Love the progress that we've made and would love nothing more to see that continue. I'm very honored to be supported by a number of people. I've been endorsed, as you may know, by Joe Reardon and Carol Marinovich, as well as countless other community leaders who have said that I'm the right person to really take the next step for the community. But the biggest honor would be the personal endorsement by each individual voter, because it's that individual endorsement when people go to the polls on April 2nd and vote that means the most at the end of the day. So I would just appreciate the opportunity. I've appreciated the opportunity, been humbled by the opportunity to be a commissioner, and would be honored to serve as mayor and be elected on April 2nd.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you, and good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll be looking for you in the future.
Well, thank you. Okay. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us on Conversations. Have a good day.